Welcome back to Built by Becker, and man, I'm excited for this episode. Today, I am honored to have Steve Hagenbuckle right here on our show. Take it away.
Sure. Well, my primary focus is managing private equity commercial real estate funds. The organization that I started 16 years ago is called TerraCap Management, and we manage institutional capital and high net worth capital for individuals that want to participate in commercial real estate. So for us, the focus is multifamily, apartment complexes, industrial properties, port industrial, last mile industrial, flex industrial. We also have some history in office as well as hospitality, but our focus is multifamily and industrial. And we're predominantly the fastest growing states and cities in the country. That's part of our original thesis. So you'll find us in the Atlantic Southeast, you'll find us in the South and Mountain Southwest. So that's, anything from Phoenix to Dallas to Austin to Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta, the Carolinas, Colorado. Those are the markets that are growing the fastest. And that's predominantly driven by in-migration and corporate relocation. So people and businesses that are seeking affordability. So they're moving, to those markets. And there are a lot of them in the most recent years, with COVID and what have you. A lot of those migratory trends have accelerated, and the people are going into the markets that we're in also because they feel, there's less social unrest and it's more stable.
We like those kind of communities.
Well, Florida is a big example, right? It's fastest growing state for 25, 30 years now. We track a lot of the migratory trends where people are going down to the county level and why. And
do you have projects here in Florida?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then what you were saying, we talked a little bit before the podcast. Is it mostly like these bigger corporations that you deal with, or is there individuals that could invest into your company as well?
No, we have quite a few high net worth individuals that invest with us. So we manage capital for about 355 total investors. 125 of those are institutional investors like City of Boston, even college foundations like University of Florida's foundation invests with us. And then there's high net worth individuals, some of the wealthiest people in the United States invest with us as well.
Okay, so it's not just one or the other. So if you are a high net worth investor and you're looking for a great product, you got something for them.
Yeah, come see us at TerraCap. Sure, absolutely.
And where are you located? Where is your office?
We're right at the corner of Vanderbilt and 41 in the Fifth Third building there, the largest building in town. Yeah,
nice.
So we're on the 7th floor there.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah,
the 7th on 7. Let's go. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more about not just your business, but I heard you got a passion for philanthropy, community, and music.
Correct.
So how does your business help you play into those other items?
Well, we are always on the business side, on the TerraCap side, we're always giving, to charitable projects and charitable causes. So that's just a big part of who we are. I'm a big believer in giving back. It's important, especially to the community or communities that you feel, need it most. Growing up here, since I was a teenager, in Marco Island, we moved here in 1979. I always felt that Naples had a big void for live music and top-notch professional entertainment when it comes to music. We would always have to travel to Miami or Tampa or Orlando to go see good music festivals. So I felt that if I brought a significant music festival to town and took a gamble and see how that worked, it'd be my give back, to Naples, and then give most of the proceeds, first 4 years, all the proceeds to charity, which we did. And some of the big stuff that we had supported is Cure Search, so that's children's cancer research. Tunnel to Tower here locally, we give to St. Matthew's House, and we feed right before the Live Fest, and during those couple of weeks, we feed as much as 600 families for as much as a month.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
beautiful. So St. Matthew's House is a huge part of my life as well. I actually worked for the St. Matthew's House organization from 2011 until 2014.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was part of their catering business. So when I was doing
Steve and the crew over there.
I do. Yeah. So when I was doing some research on you, I saw the St. Matthew's House, and I was like, oh, cool. So I wanted to ask, what drives you to do charity? Because I know a lot of business people, of course, we get tax credits, we get this, that, and the other thing when you donate, but that's surface level crap in my work. Like what I know why I give. There's a deep rooted reason why I give, and it's because I had a second chance on life, and I was transformed, and it happened partly through St. Matthew's House, and then other areas, David Lawrence Center, and so I know why it's in my heart to give, because somebody gave for me. Yeah. What drives you to give?
So I've always felt like I've had a very fortunate life, and in different ways, I've been in very complicated situations where they were life and death, and I was able to, get through those. And they weren't related to any type of, substance or anything of that nature. They were just tough spots, and which we can get into it at some point. But the bottom line is that I've always felt that I've been fortunate, and that I've had chances and opportunities in life to basically achieve every single dream that I've ever had and every goal that I've ever had. So at a pretty young age, I always felt I should be giving back and helping other people, get a shot at something, or even just putting a smile on their face makes me feel good. Yeah. So, I'm that guy that will stop and help the person who's, begging on the street, or, needs a handout or a hand up. Yeah. I'm that guy. So I like it. It feels good. I learned a long time ago that it feels better to give than receive. And so, I enjoy the reaction.
I do too. And I didn't know, I kind of always was giving, even as a kid. My mom used to say, she used to pack me with, whatever, a lunch, and I would give half of it away at lunch, or she would pack me with an extra pair of gloves because it was cold, and I would give them to somebody that didn't have them. So I kind of always had like this giving aspect, like kind of built into me, but it wasn't until I had fallen on hard times, and mine was because of substance and alcohol. And that's a whole nother story in itself, but someone gave me a hand up, someone gave me a second chance, someone gave me an opportunity. And I felt once I then had become a little bit successful that it was my responsibility to do the same thing and keep that hand out and open for someone who might need it in that recovery community. But then I fell in love with the giving, and now it's everywhere. So, you see Becker Custom Builders on a lot of charities and a lot of events, because when someone asks, I really can't say no. So, I have a budget, of course, so I can only say yes to as much as I can, but there's joy in giving. And I really like local giving. I do some bigger things as well, but there's something about seeing things, the toy the toy drive we do for the kids in Immokalee, and the couple local foundations here that we have for kids, realize a community like Naples has such a hunger problem, that has such a homeless children problem, and then things like, children's cancer, like your those things, those things hit my heart, man, and it's like, how can I help? Like, I just hearing that and reading that yesterday when I was doing my research, I'm like, I want to know more about this. Yeah. And now it's like the instant reaction that I have now is when I hear something like this, I want to know more. I want to see what I can do to help, Yeah. And so I think it's cool. Those that have it, I know that I'm with like-minded people when I read these kind of things or learn these kind of things about people, that there's a good group of us that are out there doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I one of the other things I do here in town, we talked about bringing a music festival to town. The music festival is called Live Fest. It is the largest outdoor event in one location, at one period of time, right? Not over a whole entire day, but over, 5 hours. It is the largest event in town.
How many people?
It varies. I'll just say that we stay within our permit limit,
of course,
which is 10,000.
Okay,
so that's for the police, and the permit. We stay right in line with
9,999. And maybe a half. There might have been a baby or something.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the people would go to the event. We started it in 2019. Our first acts were Darius Rucker, Lady Antebellum, Jordan Davis, and it was a tremendous success. And if you look at the footage of it, it looked like it was completely sold out, which it pretty much was. And I gave 100% of all the proceeds to charity. And that year, we lost money because of that. Mm-hmm. And then I kept doing that. So it's a passion for me.
God looks
out
for those who give.
Well, yeah, what goes around comes around.
It does. It really 100% does. Yeah. So $3.5 billion in transactions. How do you learn to operate at a level like that?
Real estate transactions. Yeah. It's interesting. Other thing I learned at a younger age is that it's not so much the complexity of the transaction, it's the size of the transaction that translates into the dollar amount. So we were still doing similar stuff, but just bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. So, for example, our first fund at TerraCap was a $25 million land fund. And as I mentioned to you now, we manage about $2.5 billion in fair market value of the current holdings. So it's a 100x in growth. What has changed, to your question, is the size of the deal. So our original fund, we would do, properties that were anywhere from, $1 million to $2 million. Our average deals now are anywhere from 60 to 120 million per deal. But we're still doing, about the same amount of volume, maybe a little more volume, and we have a much bigger geography. Now we started in Florida, and I mentioned earlier, those mm-hmm. markets we're in. So that's the difference is the deal size and the geographies.
And how long have you been doing that?
16 years. I've been doing it under the name of TerraCap. And I did a lot of private syndications prior to that, and that was a principal private real estate investor on my own as well. I started doing all of the real estate investing probably around 1996, 1997, 1998 is when I started doing that. And it was a result of a liquidity event where I had sold the first business that I started, which was called Techware Consulting. Started that in Dallas. And we were the fastest growing organic consulting firm in the U.S. at the time. I started in 95, and in less than 2 years, we had 155 employees.
Wow.
And we sold the company to CBR, which is cyber. They trade on the New York Stock Exchange. So
wow,
that was a fun run. And
I bet.
We've done a few other exits.
How many
then.
team members are still with you from the get-go from 16 years ago?
Oh, you got to remember, 16 years ago, there was only 2 or 3 employees, right? So I would say, and my senior management team, the majority of them have been with me for anywhere from 11 to 14 years. So wow. Quite a few.
So you got it up and running, and then you've hired a really solid crew of people.
Yeah. We have about 28 folks that work there full time, and then we have a property management company called Harvard Pacific, and that's based out of Tampa. That has about another 20 staff.
Okay.
And we have offices here in Naples, Atlanta, and in Denver.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. So now you obviously travel for this business.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Get to travel.
Yeah, not as much as I used to.
Different
but
locations, and
yeah,
I'm sure you have people that do all the scouting and things for you now, and you might just have to look at the reports, but you still get to travel a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
That's good. All right, so let's talk a little bit. Let's go a little bit more into Live Fest. I mean, the story of, like, I know you had the idea, but like, what really drove you to bring it here, and how did you get it here? Like, what? There's got to be some challenges. I think it's good for people to hear. There's a lot of people see, the tip of the iceberg. We've seen this meme on Instagram. We've seen, oh, look, he's so successful, or he's up here, but nobody sees all the work it took to get to that first Live Fest. So like, how did the idea come about? And then, what struggles did you have to bring it here? I'm sure there was bureaucracy and permitting, and the neighborhood didn't want it. And, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's something. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, the vision started, as I mentioned, many years ago, watching this area having a void, no significant music festivals. I mean, sure, there's concerts at like Hertz Arena and stuff like that, but they're indoors. It's not an outdoor setting. It doesn't have, like hospitality suites lining both sides and a big, massive stage with huge LED boards and everything. So, when I was in college, I worked in and around the music industry in a security capacity. And so that meant from security for big stadiums when large acts would come into town at University of Florida in Gainesville. And then also in a nightclub setting, which I worked in a place called the Islands. And this is, circa 1982 to 84, 85. It was the largest live music venue / bar in the southeastern United States. And it was brand new. So it drew a lot of big acts. It went from like the Allman Brothers to Cheap Trick to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and, Bo Diddley, a lot of folks. And then we would have entertainers, as you and I have discussed offline, that would come in just to hang out, and that included folks like Robin Williams, Eddie Murphy, people like this would just come to our club because they were in town to do a show, which I usually ended up working for them as security, and was hired prior to them arriving. But they would come to the club to hang out because they were there for 1 or 2 nights.
Wow.
So anyhow, I was in and around that. But I'm a long-term planner. So I was actually surprised, and we're going back probably around 12 or 13 years ago. I reserved the domain name livefest.com, but I was surprised it was available. So I reserved it, and then I had it for 2 years and had a website, like a placeholder website. And then somebody, a domainer in UK, stole my domain site.
No way.
It expired. He didn't steal it. He bought it.
Yeah.
But just right out from under me. I didn't even know it happened, right? And this was, again, 12 years ago when all these domainers were out there.
Yeah.
And so I had some friends in senior management at GoDaddy. And I said, look, this is what happened here. And I've contacted the guy, but the guy wants, $10,000 for this domain name. And, it doesn't feel right. And so because I knew the right people, they said, well, we know who that guy is in the UK. Let us give him a call. And they basically said, if you don't give the domain back, we won't do any business with you ever again. So we settled on a very fair number. I gave him like $1,800 or something and got it back. But so that was the beginning. And then the key is in Naples is especially infill, the demographic here is high-end individuals. So these high-end individuals have high expectations, right? So for a music festival, they don't want to go out to some far-reaching, festival grounds or some, park or, amusement park or other areas or sports parks that are too far out. They're kind of spoiled, right? Mm-hmm. So you need an infill location. And I actually live in Tiburon. I thought the Tiburon Golf Club with the Ritz-Carlton backdrop during a PGA event, which they host 3 PGA events. Well, one's an LPGA event, and then the CME Championship, and then they have 2 PGA events. And so it's now called the Grant Thornton Invitational. Prior to that, it was the QBE, and prior to that, it was the Franklin Templeton. But it was started by Greg Norman, who I had met Greg, over the years being there in Tiburon. So I had to get permission from Greg Norman first and foremost. Then I had to get permission from the PGA, had to get permission from the Ritz-Carlton, had to get permission from the Tiburon Golf Club, and had to get permission from the Tiburon Master Homeowners Association. So a friend of mine who is kind of a co-conspirator, thought guy behind, the dynamics of what we're doing at LiveFest. His name's Rob Hartman. And he works closely with a guy who he reports to named Taylor Ives, and they work for Wasserman Group, and Wasserman manages this event. So I pitched it to them first. They liked the idea. The big question for everyone was, who's going to pay for it? And I said, I'll pay for it. And I said, I'll take all the financial risk. But let's try to bring this to Naples and see what we can do. So basically, they all bought into the deal. Greg was told about it actually by Rob Hartman on his private jet flying to New York. The response from the jet was a thumbs up emoji coming back from Greg to me that it's on.
Okay.
The PGA guy that we asked, he happened to be a drummer in a band, so he loved it. All the stars are aligning. And the most fun part of all was you think about, a HOA and bringing in the parking, the buses, the hoopla, all the people into Tiburon, and you have to get approval from the HOA. It just so happens that for the last almost 11 years, 10 years now, I'm the president of the Tiburon Master Association. So it was easy to get that approval.
Well, the good thing is it's already during a tournament. So there's already a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah.
You're not bringing something at a different time. You're not going, so they're used to that. So it did all kind of fall into line. And then, but I'm sure it just didn't all happen, that easily. I'm sure there was a lot more to that, but it's nice that it all did because the result was the first one was a great success.
Yeah. And they've all been successful since. And, we as operators try to make sure that we're continuing to refine it and, make it better and better every year. And we've gotten to the point, which is really amazing, is we have had zero complaints in the last couple of years and just positive energy. And the complaints early on were you don't have enough porta potties. I had to wait too long for my beer, that kind of stuff. But we've addressed everything, and we continue to try to refine it and do the best we can for the community. But to your point, part of the pitch was, hey, you guys are already doing all these things. You have a lot of these service providers already in place. This should be viewed as a bolt-on event to your already successful PGA Grant Thornton Invitational.
Yeah. And that worked well. That really did. What would you say one of the biggest challenges you have doing a large scale like festival?
The biggest challenges, I would say, is making sure that we can secure the right talent going forward year after year so that the audience is pleased with our selection and they feel that the chemistry mix or the final choices of the talent are going to provide a good night of entertainment for them. That's the biggest challenge. And when you do an event year after year after year, you're always putting that challenge in front of the team. Like, how do we make it better or more exciting? And, last year we had the Goo Goo Dolls. We had, Old Dominion. Old Dominion, was the only country band that has ever won Country Band of the Year 7 times.
Wow.
So, and the Goo Goo Dolls were fantastic. It was amazing because people weren't sure who the headliners were last year. There's the Goo Goo Dolls, the headliners, and we're like, well, it's actually Old Dominion, but knowing the guys, Johnny Resnick and Rob from the Goo Goo Dolls, they're like, we're just happy to play and deliver, good energy to the audience. They're just fantastic individuals. And most of the entertainers that come through here are just amazing people. And they really are passionate about giving people a good time and a time to remember.
So who helps pick the music or the entertainers for the years to come?
So there's a small team. I have final choice, clearly. But the small team is comprised of Rob Hartman, who I mentioned to you earlier, Adam Bauer from iHeartRadio, a guy named Paul Murphy from Murphy Entertainment Company. He does all of our production, stage production, and is in that world all the time. So we're the team that basically mixes up the options and decides what's the best outcome. And then it goes from there. We have to negotiate and see who's available, who's willing to come, because most of the bands stop touring in November, a lot of them early November, so they can spend Thanksgiving, Christmas, and early year, January, February with their families. So their tour season is March till November. So you're basically asking someone, hey, but it's not a tough ask. Do you want to come to sunny Naples, where there's 1.5 inch of rain in December on average? To stay at a Ritz-Carlton and perform. And if you want, you can hang out all week, and you can even play in the Pro-Am golf tournament if you want, So
there's lots of allure there.
Yeah, and some of them bring their families, and it's great. Like Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls, we were talking before the show, and I invited him over to the house, and he said, Steve, I would love to come over to the house. He goes, but I have to be on an 8 a.m. flight with my 8-year-old daughter. We're flying to Helsinki to watch, and to stay in those igloos with the glass ceilings to watch the Northern Lights. Right. I mean, what a beautiful thing to do, So he was fantastic.
Yeah, that is great. That is great. So Let's go into where your love of music and celebrities took off. I already kind of know a little bit about this story, but I think we can unpack a little bit on this. You kind of touched on it a little bit already, but let's go into where this all started back in the early 80s. You work in security and getting to meet some of these individuals and how that's playing into, how it's all tying into Life Fest today in your business that you have today.
And the Good Intentions Band.
Oh, that's the last. That's my last thing, man. That's my last thing. Saving the best for last.
It's a great question, Blake. So it started at age 13, where my parents got me a guitar, and I played in a little garage band, and the band was called Black Diamond. And it's really, really funny because some of the songs, like from the Cars and stuff like that, we still play today. So I've been singing those songs for 45 years. Nice. And anyhow, that's where it started. And then when I was at University of Florida, as I mentioned, I worked security. I was a bouncer in multiple bars. And then I worked private security. I have a background in mixed martial arts before they called it mixed martial arts. So I was a wrestler in high school and junior high school, and then started boxing, around that time period and all through college and after college, and played judo in college. So I had the skill set to take care of things.
Have you ever had to use that skill set?
Oh, many, many times. And that's part of the earlier comment. Some of the earlier comments where I said I was in some really tough spots with situations where I came out on the right side of the deal.
Well, that's good.
But many times. Yeah. I mean, more than I can count.
Yeah.
So it started working security at the O'Connell Center, which is the big basketball stadium at University of Florida, as well as Florida Field, which is a big football stadium. Mm-hmm. And I worked for acts such as Bill Cosby, Robin Williams, Eddie Murphy, Rodney Dangerfield, just to name a few on the comedy side. And what would happen too is I could be hired for 24-hour security because a lot of them would come into town and want to stay over that night because they couldn't get flights out after their show. So they would get 24-hour security, and I was usually the guy that got the nod for that, and a couple others, but I was always the lead on that. Mm-hmm. And then working in the bars. I mean, like I mentioned, Flock of Seagulls, the church. Greg Allman Band. I mean, I can give you a story. Greg's no longer with us, but I can tell you Greg is an amazing performer, a super sweet guy, but was highly intoxicated when he would play or, in another place, let's just say, through other substances. And he would play, one night he was playing at our venue and he had his back to the audience. And I was behind the speakers on the stage watching the crowd. Full house, and it's 2,500 people, so it's a good sized crowd. And we had the security fencing in front of the stage down in the pit area, and there was a gal on the end who was very vocal in between songs, yelling profanities at Greg and saying that he left her and her son, who's obviously a young child. And it found out, later that this was not uncommon, with Greg. And anyhow, she kept yelling these profanities and was getting more and more violent and more angry. And then, Greg, as I mentioned, was playing with his back to the audience, was not paying attention. And all of a sudden the gal pulls a big, long, knife sharpener, one of those things, a knife sharpener with a very sharp point on it, goes to climb on the stage to basically, stab him in the back with it. And so there's an example where I saw that. Here I was, 19, 20-year-old kid, didn't know what else to do other than charge the woman and give her a nice solid kick to the shoulder area and send her flying into the crowd. And the other security guys that were in the pit were looking at me like, what are you doing? What happened? And I just pointed at her and pointed to the door and told her to leave. And after the show, we're talking to Greg's management, and some of the guys that were in the band said, should we tell Greg, because this girl is obviously a problem? And they said, well, we can tell him, but he won't remember anything we tell him tonight. And she's 1 of 10. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, maybe we'll tell him tomorrow, but, so that kind of stuff happened. So I was always around, that and the energy of it, of the live performances and watching, I'll never forget George Thorogood and the Delaware Destroyers, right? The song Bad to the Bone, right?
Yeah.
He walks on stage and I'm thinking to myself, here I am, a 20-year-old guy. He's wearing a snakeskin jacket, snakeskin pants, snakeskin boots, and a black t-shirt of himself, right? And then he comes running across the stage, slides on both knees, bent, right? Slides on the knees like you saw old school.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of these guys have bad hips and problems, bad knees and hips. And he's playing guitar and doesn't miss a note. Wow. And you watch this stuff and you're like, holy shit, this is like surreal.
Right.
And so I was around all that kind of stuff. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, they're from Gainesville, Florida, which is where University of Florida is. And so they would come into the club when they were back from LA. They had moved out to LA, 77, 78 time frame, maybe 76, something like that. But every 6 months or every 3 to 6 months, they'd come back into town and visit family and friends, and they would always come to my club. And so I got to know those guys pretty well. And
you play music.
Yeah.
Right? So you play music and you're very good at playing music.
Thank you.
So when you see a professional entertainer such as that come on stage and just rip through something and not miss the beat and sometimes be so highly intoxicated,
right?
It really shows the level of talent that these guys really have. It's so above the norm. Just like if you were playing football with an NFL, star and you played high school ball, there's just no comparison.
Yeah,
into the amount of talent that these guys have, and you've probably seen. So many amazing artists, and to see them do these kind of things is unreal.
Especially when they're not all there.
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean, they're a lot of the times not there, and they're just killing it.
It's autopilot. It's who they are. It's in their blood. It comes out of their pores. It's so natural for them. But I think a lot of people don't realize behind the scene to be a good musician is hundreds, if not, it's not hundreds, it's thousands upon thousands of hours of practice and repetition. And so your body gets used to that repetition and you get into a zone. And once you have certain songs down and certain instruments down and you've played them hundreds of times, it just flows out of you. And the more you play it, and the more regularly you play it, it just flows right out of you. And then it becomes more passionate and more of an entertainment for the audience because they can see that this is a true musician and it's just pouring out of them, right? And it's all autopilot. So they're not going to miss a note because they played that note,
1,000 times.
Most people have like 10,000 hours. As you heard, that there's a book out there. I can't remember what it's called, but it's about basically the highest performing individuals. Someone did a lot of research on it, whether it was basketball or any kind of sport or arts or whatever. They have dedicated over 10,000 hours to that particular art or sport and in their life, and that's when they really start crossing over. And they even include, entrepreneurs, like Bill Gates and people like that, working in their garage, with computers. And so that's the thing is it just becomes autopilot there. But don't get me wrong. There's also a point where they go over, right? And, any substance can take you beyond the point of recognition, meaning like even you don't remember what song or what note you're on. And that's when it becomes a problem. And that's broken up a lot of bands because of the substance abuse. And I've watched a lot of that. And I've watched many people, that are no longer with us. It's because of the substance abuse.
All right, I got some questions.
All right.
Who was the most surprising celebrity for you? Like, who was the biggest celebrity in your eyes that you were able to meet in those times or up until today?
I spent a really unique situation and time with Robin Williams at the peak of his career.
Wow.
And he was getting ready to perform at Gator Growl, which is University of Florida's halftime show. And then there's a Gator Growl is actually the Friday night before the actual homecoming game. So there's a big performance there. And then they can also perform halftime. But I think he was just doing the performance that Friday night. So he came in Thursday night. They showed up unannounced at our nightclub. A limousine pulls up. The manager gets out, walks up to the door. I'm the front, head bouncer at the door. Comes up and says, "We have Robin Williams in the car. He's wants to hang out at your club. We hear this is the place. Are you guys okay with that?" everyone, and now listen, this is right in the height of Mork and Mindy, right? Height of Mork and Mindy, and also Good Morning Vietnam.
Wow.
So everybody's just like, what?
Superstar.
Yeah.
Superstar.
Yeah. And just lovable, right?
Yeah.
And just such a comedic mind, like so amazing. So he walks in, and everyone, and he's a relatively smaller stature guy, and I think he's like, I don't know, not that tall, right? But he just walks in with this big, shining, glowing smile, just kind of looks around, and so everybody was starstruck, and nobody knew what to say or do. It was like Robin Williams at the peak of his career,
Wow.
So everyone just stood there, and I said, never short for words. I said, someone's got to break the ice here. So I said, hello, Mr. Williams. My name's Steve Hagenbuckle, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. And I said, but you really look like Jimmy Duran. Was that you? 69 Da Nang, you were shot up pretty bad. I pulled you into that foxhole. And he goes, Bobby Salage? Bobby's that you? He goes, I can't believe it. He goes, you saved my life. And he went off and on,
right,
on and on and on into these different personalities. And he switched from Good Morning Vietnam to other, characters. And it was just a whole thing. And so the manager, all these guys are around, and I have a photo of that I've showed you from that night. And it's like the vintage photo of the century, right? And the manager says, well, what would you like to do? And Steve will just take care of you. And he said, do you have a green room? And I said, yeah, we have a brand new green room because the club was new. And I said, you want to go back there? And he said, yeah. And I said, who do you want to bring with? We can invite people in. He goes, let's just go there for now, you and me, and we'll talk and we'll figure out what we want to do. And I said, sounds great. We went back there, sat there, just him and me for 3 hours, drank 2 bottles of Wild Turkey. And it was a fantastic time. And I watched probably the most brilliant comedic mind that I've ever seen. And the guy's raw intellect and the way, how fast he thinks and how he can move around was amazing. So that, I would say he was the
What kind of conversation was had in that 3 hour period? Obviously drinking. So it was,
yeah.
I'm sure it went all over
it
the
digressed.
place.
It digressed.
As the night went on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it started out with me asking him, how he got into comedy, how long he's been doing all that. I think he's a Canadian. I think he, as I recall, he lived in San Francisco. But I think he's Canadian. I may be wrong, but
fact checkers will figure that out.
Yeah, well, let's Google it. But anyhow, so we started with that, and then we got into the movies and everything, and some of the stuff we talked about was just everyday stuff,
right?
Like not about any of that.
Yeah.
But it's a long time ago. So
no, I'm sure.
After a half a bottle of that,
Yeah, I bet.
But
sure, just a life-changing experience nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, once in a life
thing.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you feel that they're all human.
Yeah.
And, like I said, some of them, when you're human, you're vulnerable, and some of them, had some vices.
What would be the funniest story you have from working security or working around celebrities?
Oh God, Tom Petty was a piece of work. So Tom would come in with Stan Lynch, the drummer, and Mike Campbell. And this is like this side note. These guys used to ask me, I'm 20 years old, and they'd say, "Hey, do you want to go water skiing tomorrow?" Right? They're on the up, they're on the rise. To be the biggest and the best. Right? And, do you want to go water skiing? And I never went with them. You know why? Because I had to study. And I said, I can't go. I got school. I got to study. And they're like, really? You're not going to come ski us? But remember, they weren't superstars
at
yet.
that time. Yeah.
Everyone knew who they were. And this was also the time where MTV, was coming out with the videos, MTV videos, so music TV channel. That was all brand new. So we didn't have a DJ. We had what was considered new. We had a VJ, a video jock. And so that was like fantastic. And the club had all that stuff for it. But anyhow, Tom was great because a lot of times Tom would be, he's a very mellow guy, pretty shy guy, pretty quiet guy, sweetheart. One time we're backstage and we're just hanging out, and he says, "Hey, I'll get up and do a few songs." Right. And the place is packed. No one's expecting it. So he says that you got an acoustic guitar, and we had a pretty good acoustic just sitting back there. So we handed it to him. I put a bar stool out on the stage. He goes, I'll just do something unplugged, And I said, sounds great. So he gets up there and he starts playing Breakdown,
Wow.
and then he transitions into American Girl. And while he's doing this, right, he'd had a few cocktails. While he's doing this, he starts leaning and falling slowly while he's playing and not missing a note, like what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And he's literally at an angle like this. And I thought he was going to fall over. So I come running back from behind one of the speakers, on the stage, on the side of the stage there. And I grab him and I put him straight up and I go, Tom, are you okay? Are you okay? He didn't even answer me. He just kept playing. So he's sitting back upstage again. And then about 2 minutes later, the same thing happened. And then, put him back up. 5 minutes later, same thing happened. So that was great. And then, we had to walk him to his car. And there were times one time he showed up with Stevie Nicks. That was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. He was married and he showed up with Stevie Nicks. She looked good.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So Robin Williams, Tom Petty, I think you've said Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah, Lenny's cool. Lenny was later. Lenny was more on a social front. I didn't work security for Lenny, but hung out with him in Miami at the Crowbar. A good friend of mine, Tommy Spiegel, who I went to college with, owned a club called the Chili Pepper in Fort Lauderdale.
I remember that club.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was yeah, and they had all kinds of great bands. I mean, even the Goo Goo Dolls played at the Chili Pepper, right? So it was owned by my buddy Tommy Spiegel and another very good friend of mine and a partner of mine in many businesses, Jeff Roshman. He's the one who funded my first tech startup in '95 that I mentioned earlier, Techware. And we've done a lot of deals together, from banks to we also had two other tech startups, another one called Collegiate Images and another one called, the bank was called Landmark Bank in Fort Lauderdale. So, but yeah, those two guys owned Chili Pepper. Tommy knew Lenny real well. And we used to go hang out at the Crowbar. And what was great about Lenny was we always were in the VIP area. And Lenny would come in all by himself, no entourage, no security. And this is, again, at the peak of Lenny's career. So now we're talking 98, 99. So, like 24 years ago, Lenny was peaking. And he would walk in, coolest dude you ever met, super sweet, talks to everybody, super down to earth. And Lenny would come and hang out with us. And this went on for many, many months. And one of the funniest things of all was whenever we would do a picture together, with other friends and family, like we do when we're all out and having fun, there was a gal named Cassandra or something like that. Cassandra. She was one of Madonna's best friends. She was the serial photo bomber of the century. And she's in that one of the photos I showed you.
Okay.
That's her. Like, we're like, why are you in our photo? Always. And she just, loved to be in those photos. So
I remember seeing him. I think I was at Wet Willie's on South Beach, and he was just walking by, and it wasn't like he was with a huge crowd, just walking down South Beach.
Yeah.
And it is cool when you see the, celebrities like that. They're kind of like bigger than life, know, just kind of walk by, and they do seem to have somewhat of an aura or a glow about them when they go by. I mean, I remember being at a club with Dennis Rodman and it's like, some of these guys, they're definitely characters,
Yeah, and what I like is, I like that they don't feel like they need to have an entourage or security. And I think what I really respect is when people see that, like guys like us, they see that, and people just let them do their thing, and they don't bother them. Right. Let them live. Live and let live. I mean, the guy's having a night out. He doesn't need to be, pursued.
Space. Yeah. And I think that's why we do see a lot of celebrities here in Naples. You can go to a restaurant on 5th and see a celebrity, and nobody's messing with them. They might ask for a picture here and there, but for the most part, it's kind of quiet. Where in some of the bigger cities, they do get mobbed, and I think they might have to have security detail. But let's roll into something that's a little bit more personal, local. The Good Intentions Band. Tell me about the Good Intentions Band. How did this come together? What is your musical style? Let's let the listeners find out a little bit about the Good Intentions Band.
So the Good Intentions Band is a 4-member band, and as you can see by the smile on my face, it
love,
brings a lot of good energy and a lot of memories already. We've been together for about 2.5 years. Actually, our first performance together as a band was when we did a Tom Petty tribute on the 5th year of his passing at Live Fest. So we did a 3-song tribute. We opened up with American Girl, and we rolled into Won't Back Down, and we finished with Free Fallin'.
Nice.
And that was the first time we performed together in front of that audience.
Wow.
So we had some rehearsals, don't get me wrong.
Nothing like jumping in with both feet, though.
Yeah, and some of the 3 of the 4 of us had actually played together in another band, but we'd never worked on those 3 songs together for something like that with a new bass player. So that was the first time we performed together. So that was in 2022. So yeah, 2.5, 3 years we've been together, but had noodled around and played in other bands prior. So the drummer, his name is Blake Owen.
Shout out to Blake.
Yeah, shout out to Blake.
One of the other Blakes in town. We love Blake.
There you go. Yeah. Can never have enough Blakes.
There's a lot of us now.
Or you have to have the right kind of Blakes, such as yourselves. Yeah, and then Mike Parsons, who is actually a professor of oceanography at FGCU. He's our lead guitarist. He's amazing. And Blake is a great drummer, but he's also a very good singer.
You were mentioning that the other night.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
he does quite a few songs with you guys.
Yeah. Blake usually, anywhere from 6 to 8 of our 30 songs Blake does, and I'm the lead singer for the majority of this stuff, and I play rhythm guitar, a little bit of lead. And then we have a bass player, Steve Mastrangelo, who's fantastic, and he plays with multiple bands. But he's played every gig with us since we had a departure of we had a Troy Maloney who played with Dolt, who toured with Pantera. Troy was our first bass player. Okay. But the commute he lived up in North Fort Myers, and business challenges and stuff made it difficult for him. So, we love Troy. But we have Steve Mastrangelo now at bass, and it's been great. So we try to limit the amount of gigs we do to, maybe somewhere between 6 and 10 a year. Okay. We don't want to overplay stuff. Our focus is more classic rock, but also 90s and 2000 stuff. So you'll see us playing anything from the Foo Fighters to the Goo Goo Dolls to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers to the Cars to the Stones.
That's a good variety for Naples.
Yeah.
And do you guys go any farther out? Are you in Fort Myers? Are you doing any shows outside of this Southwest Florida area?
Yeah. No, not right now. Actually, we may be doing something in Costa Rica pretty soon. But
do you need help?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. That's an open invitation.
Tell my wife, yeah. Oh, the guys need me. I gotta go.
Gotta go, babe. Life on the road. Yeah. So mostly Naples. We will be playing. We play Whiskey Park quite a bit. We like that venue. They've been good to us. We play stuff like we're playing actually April 5th. We're playing 7 to 10 at the new Sugar Shack downtown.
Oh, so I'll be there.
Big shout out to that.
Yes, I'll be there. I know a few guys are involved in that. Yep. So that'll be good. I'll be there for that one.
Arian, Eddie Cobb, Justin, Spencer, Alex, all great guys. And they do all the videography and photography and drone work at Live Fest. So I've worked with them, for 6-7 years now, and they do fantastic work, and watch their Sugar Shack sessions, which now has, I want to say, around 750,000 subscribers, maybe almost close to 1 million. That was like 6 months ago. So they're probably up there closer to 1 million. So it's a great local success story. And they just opened their new venue, Sugar Shack downtown Bonita Springs. And whenever I can, I give them shout outs because I really love those guys. And so we'll be playing there, the Good Intentions Band, live April 5th from 7 to 10 p.m. Awesome. And then I think we're playing March 8th at Whiskey Park, and then again late April at Whiskey Park. Okay. Yeah. So
all right. Well, we'll definitely get those exact. I'll get those exact dates, and we'll throw those into the podcast along with all the pictures that you shared with us. And Well, definitely. Any plugs for the business or anything else you want to plug out there? It sounds like Good Intentions is the passion that lights you up. But you're more than welcome to share any websites or any information of things you have coming up in 25.
Oh, thank
Anything
you.
about Live Fest you want to plug for?
It's
the coming
too early.
year?
You know,
Too early to share?
we sincerely don't have the talent picked. We're pursuing somebody that's typical. Ask financially is bigger than our whole budget.
Okay.
So there's some negotiation going on. We're not sure how that'll play out, but right now we don't have a commitment. So don't want to announce anything there.
Do we know the date is going to be?
Yeah, I think it's always the second Saturday in December. So I want to say like the 12th or 14th of December, but always the second Saturday of December. And tickets, you'll go on sale in May. We put them on sale in May, but the certain experiences sell out quick, like the Live Fest Club sells out quick. Do you have that? December 13th is Live Fest. Yeah. So you can go to livefest.com and learn more about Naples' largest live music festival, which it blends rock and roll and country. And then as far as the band, The Good Intentions Band is our handle on Instagram. And I think it's goodintentionsband.com is our website. And TerraCap Management, which is TerraCap, TerraCap MGMT is .com is the business. But big shout out to Becker Construction. And I've been hearing great things about you guys.
Thank you.
And you as a person, I have a lot of respect for you. You know, we're new friends, but really excited for you and what you guys are doing and all the projects and getting into some really big stuff that's good, complicated stuff. And I'm sure the outcome and the customers will be real pleased.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you for coming on and looking forward to the years to come, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, guys. All right, guys, that's it. Follow Steve, follow Good Intentions Band, and follow Live Fest. We want to make this even bigger this year. This has been a wonderful show. Thank you for watching Built by Becker.
Thank you.